We are Alex and Silvana. We've been married for 5 years, and we've been a part of Generation for 4 years. And this is our God story.
I'm at work, and I'm getting a phone call from a cousin of mine. And he goes to me and says, "Primo, I need you to drop everything that you're doing. I need you to go to the old Palace 18 movie theater. The police found your brother unconscious." She meets me there. We're there. My mom arrives there. We're all on the scene, and they had already taken my brother to the hospital. They had a team of about 9 doctors working on him. They were trying to figure out, how we could stabilize him and bring him back. It didn't look good. But I listened to the officers' advice. They told me, "Listen, you don't want to see your brother in that state." So, okay. All right then. So I decided to go home. And my wife and my mom, they respect my decision. They come with me. So we're back in our apartment. And, at that point, I'm just praying, God, if there's a way, please let it happen. Please let him survive this. I think what was different at that point is that, you had a firm conviction in you, and you decided to want to go back to the hospital.
Yeah, I remember we were sitting in the living room of my apartment, and I just couldn't comprehend staying there. And I said, someone has to go to the hospital to pray for him and lay hands. And Alex and his mom stayed at the apartment, and I went to the hospital. And for me, that was a key moment, because for the next 2 years, I would wrestle heavily with my decision to go to the hospital. When I arrived, Danny was already stabilized and he was in a room. But all the monitors, all the tubes, everything that was keeping him alive. And I did go and I prayed, and I was there for a bit, and I had some worship music, and my hope was, I really want him to walk out of this hospital bed to tell his story of redemption and healing. And so I was believing for a miracle, even though the situation was very, very dire.
I felt, although the decisions that led him there were not my fault, I still felt responsible. We go to bed. I don't know how I was able to sleep. It was weird. My mom obviously doesn't want to leave our side, so she's asleep on our couch. Silvana and I are in our bed. Suddenly I've had some really weird dreams. This one was just like, I really couldn't, I've never had anything like this happen to me before. I remember waking up, and I look up at the ceiling. I look up and I see like a silhouette of someone, and it looked like my brother. Behind him, I can just see trees. Palm trees, like a paradise. And I'm thinking, man, it looks good up there. Where am I? I'm thinking to myself, like, where is this happening? I look around, I'm in my bedroom, but I look up and it's someplace else, and it's my brother looking at me. And we have no words, but I could understand what he's telling me. And I knew at that moment that he had to go. And I just remember shouting as loud as I could, "Don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me." And then I hear someone shush me, like a peaceful shush. Like almost like you're putting a child to sleep. I went back to sleep. I wake up the next day, and I asked my wife, "Hey, did I start yelling in the middle of the night or something?" "Yeah, I don't think you remembered any of that." I asked my mom, who didn't sleep anything, of course. With her child in the hospital, how could she? She didn't remember anything either. So I took it as confirmation that was God telling me that, my brother, he was going to walk out of that hospital, but different, and that he was no longer there. at that hospital bed. He was already gone, but gone to paradise. Thankfully, my brother was saved. So although I know that in his final years, they were quite turbulent because of a lot of the things that he suffered through, I had the sense of peace that the responsibility for my brother's life, he was my younger brother, so that big brother spirit I always had over him, it's still there. But now I know that he's up there waiting for us. I was able to have that peace that evening, but to fully digest that so suddenly was obviously a massive pill to swallow. They weren't finding brain activity. And it was because when my brother had overdosed from fentanyl, he fell into cardiac arrest. He stopped breathing for an estimated time of about 40 minutes. So let's assume there's the 99.9 that he doesn't make it, that 0.1% that he'd have been a complete vegetable. Nonetheless, we were hoping to see what could happen. We even got Pastor Rich to show up, and man, he dropped everything that he was doing. I remember that conversation. He's like, I'm on my way house. And he's like, by the way, man, what's your favorite ice cream? He brought us ice cream and he brought us cookies. He sat on our couch.
Our families were there.
Our families were there.
And by that Saturday evening, like with the test they ran and the results that they gave us, we were told he was no longer there. But it wasn't until the next day on Sunday that we were able to go in to say our goodbyes. And that was...
it was hell.
Just shocking.
It felt like hell.
It felt like a train ran us over.
I would have preferred the train. That's how bad it was. I remember going into the room, and it's bad because the nurses don't want to make eye contact with you. And I was like, oh, bro, this is not good. This is not good. My mom, my wife, and we step into the room with a neurologist, the sweetest woman ever, incredibly intelligent. And, she sat down with us and she
showed us all the scans.
She showed us everything, yeah. And she told us, look, this is the situation. I remember looking at my brother and like the little details that I'll always remember about him. He had like a little, like a mole like right here on his thumb that I know he always had. So I saw that and I squeezed his thumb. He always had a little cowlick on his forehead. And so I was there just tussling his cowlick. I held him tight, I hugged him, but I knew that he was no longer there, that I was saying goodbye. And it was weird, it was very sad, but part of me sensed relief because I know my brother was no longer in pain. And I didn't know it yet. Again, not having the foresight, I didn't know it yet. But that gave me hope. It would give me hope later on. He'll always bring a smile to my face. He was charismatic. He was kind.
It's funny.
He was very funny. And I was just always busting his chops. Like always, always, always. First he was like a flat 5 feet. And I'm like 5'11", almost 6. So, he was kind of chunky, So he was like this little Ham, right? So I would call him Hamlet, and he hated that name.
He grew to love it. He grew to love it.
He grew to love it. This is me and him, right? So I'm there with like my Jason Momoa beard, and then he's next to me, and like it was a relationship that we had that I was always like picking on him, and so one day I really ticked him off, And I said something like, yeah, whatever, Hamlet. And he got mad. And from like the first floor to the second floor, like he threw like a Little Caesars pizza at me, missed, and it stuck to the ceiling.
Your mom was pissed.
She was furious, dude. And like, bro, there was like cheese like dripping from the ceiling, and he got so furious. And so, like we think about the good times, This would be my second experience with a traumatic death. For he and I, the loss of our stepfather was the first.
Well, your stepdad, his dad.
Yeah. It was his dad, my stepdad. And so what had happened was that my stepdad struggled with just a lot of drugs. Alcohol was like the biggest one. And he never wanted to get help. He was very stubborn. He loved us. He really did love us. But he didn't want to get help for his addictions. And when he was under the influence, it was incredibly violent, incredibly abusive. He was just like a different person. He was horrible, And then eventually when he passed, it was because he was trying to control the addiction for himself. And so what he was trying to do is already like in like the really late stages of alcoholism, like at that point, it looked like he had Cushing's. He was trying to just detox and give himself 3 days to not have any alcohol in the system. And when he did that, he fell into shock. He collapsed on his bathroom at his house because he had already divorced my mom by that point. And I was just beginning my walk with Christ. My brother was 12 years old and so vulnerable. And like we didn't have like any of the tools or resources at the time to be able to help him. So he turned to drugs. And unfortunately, he didn't get his pain resolved. He didn't have the right resources. And turning to drugs became an addiction. And it crippled him. He stopped playing baseball. He stopped caring about school. And he really missed our dad. Despite all his flaws, he really missed our dad. And that was an experience that would forever mark him.
For me, later on, dealing with the aftermath and the impact, I really found myself at a place where my faith was in crisis. Because I had to reconcile our very painful reality with what I know to be true of God. And that God is a God who heals, that does miracles and does the impossible. And I had to really wrestle down in my faith, well, what happens when he says no? What happens when that's not part of his plan? When the miracle doesn't come and the healing doesn't come? And it really broke me, and it made me question everything about my faith. Because I was left asking God, well, if you didn't bring healing for him on this side of heaven, how do I know that you can heal me? So I started to doubt the nature of God and his goodness. It came to a point that my faith was so weak that I couldn't even pray. I would go on weeks without really talking to God. And the most I could muster some days was just say, just give me strength. Being in church was incredibly painful. Like sitting in the house of God was painful because of the questions I had and the unanswered prayer and the unanswered questions.
One of the last memories with my brother, the last time I was with him in person, he and I got into an argument at a gas station. He left his keys inside the car and it was so back and forth. Anyway, I gave him the keys and he was able to go home. But I remember coming back home and praying and just, God, I wish there was a way that you can heal my brother from the addiction that he has. If you could just bring him peace. And that would be the week that
everything would happen.
Everything would happen. And so it was so odd. Was it an answered prayer? Or what did it mean? Now that my brother's on the other side of eternity, I know that he's found healing and he's found peace.
And wholeness.
but we were left empty. And the impact it had on me was, you know, I was an only child again? Really? I no longer felt like I was a big brother anymore. I no longer felt responsible for him. And it was such a weird feeling, and I couldn't help but ask God, why? It got me depressed. I had to seek counseling, and it was quite a journey for us to get back.
I would say though that that was us trying in our own efforts and our own merits of finding life again. And so some of the ways we coped was we became Disney pass holders. We had to force ourselves to allow to have joy again and know how to have fun and be little kids. So even in that, like God was healing us. Even though we weren't ready to just bring everything, like this is how we feel. I could see God's gentleness and his patience with us. Community was big.
Huge.
Even though it was so hard to continue to go to church or continue to attend connect groups where I would just bare my soul. And be embarrassed later, like, why did I say so much? Also serving, I didn't serve for a long time. I felt my heart was very toxic and just very bitter. And I didn't want to serve in any capacity where I could impact someone in a negative way. But I knew I wanted to start serving again, so I started serving in photography. And I remember just asking God, I want you to give me a new perspective, and I want to see things through a new lens, because I can't keep going this way. And a part of me also wanted to stay behind the scenes. I wanted to kind of just stay hidden, again, because I felt so ugly and toxic inside. And Alex joined the video cameras.
Yeah, the online team.
And he had shared with me how just having to sit there and focus helped him learn how to quiet his thoughts. And just giving of ourselves, the little bit that we had to give, was some of the ways we coped. Yeah. But what really was the turning point for us was Freedom Conference.
Oh yeah. So it was going to be those, 12 weeks with the conference at the end. And so, those first 1 or 2 weeks, I was just like bitter. Like, why am I even here? This stuff is so boring and basic and 101. In reality, they were the very fundamentals that I lost through the impact, through the mourning of my brother. I forgot a very important thing while I was being so absorbed into this responsible big brother role. And that's that I forgot that I was the son. And not only did I forget I was the son, I forgot I was the son of God. And so that's why it was important for me to relearn these things again. I was very proud at first and didn't want to hear any of it. But after some time, what Freedom showed me the most is that God loved me as a son. I was his son. It gave me that sense of purpose and identity. Even though I didn't know where to begin, I knew who I was, and I knew that I could not stay where I was at. Despite my flaws, despite the mistakes I had made, and everything else, I was still loved by him. And so knowing that he loved me, that was what set me free.
I was, dealing with a lot of bitterness, anger, resentment, and I was at my breaking point. Like, I signed up for Freedom, not with a lot of faith, but Bible says all we need is mustard seed faith. But I signed up, I think, out of desperation. Like, I need something to change, God. And at that point, I was ready for it. I was like, I am ready for you to intervene. Because before, I really didn't. I didn't want him touching my pain and my mess. And Freedom allowed me to return to a place where God's presence was sweet again. And I was able to let down my angry walls towards God. I was able to forgive. And I was able to recognize for so long we had been letting the enemy steal from us. And we had already lost so much that it became a point where we wanted to take a stance where we literally drew a line in the sand and it's no more from here. I think being able to worship again and genuinely mean what we're singing, because we've been broken, because we were at a place where we didn't believe those things or it was really hard to sing them. Now it was a conviction, and it wasn't just a song, but it was the conviction that through the good and the bad, like God is still worthy. Through seasons of valleys and deserts, He's constant and He's faithful and He's good. Our faith was tested and it was refined, and we came out stronger, and we were able to stand on solid ground. And this is what our life is built on. It's Christ Himself. And it was such an incredible gift. It was almost like finding our faith for the first time again. Thanks to freedom, we ended 2022 with such gratitude and renewed hope, that allowed us to enter 2023 and do some pretty incredible things. Really ignited this spark of faith. And the biggest step of faith we took in 2023 was signing up to become a part of Team Zambia.
All right, so tell me how one moment my wife is like, I want nothing to do with God. And the next, she's like, Teddy, we have to go to Africa. What? Are you kidding me? And so, we had a lot going on in 2023. We wanted to get a house. Things were rocky at my job. It was a lot going on.
It didn't seem to Alex like it wasn't a good time.
It was kind of crazy. Like, I don't think this is the right time for this,
And I remember praying and saying, God, you're going to tell him. We're going to Africa.
Yeah, I don't think I had a say in the matter. I think both God and Silvana just decided that we're going to Africa.
And for me, the craziest part was I came from a place of complete unbelief, because again, my faith had been shattered. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, God, we're going to Africa. And I have this assurance that we're going to go no matter the cost, no matter the obstacles. Like, I knew there was nothing that was going to stop us from going. I had very few moments where I doubted it. Like, it was just like, I have this faith and I can't shake it. And so we actually ended up sending just one sponsorship letter, and we were both fully funded after that one letter.
In one shot, like all you needed.
And I started seeing God move the impossible and just easily open doors.
That was like a springboard for us. We're like, really?
What else do you have, God
do? What else can He do? So at that point in time, I was just like, they were just giving me such a hard time at work. And I was just like, man, this does not look good. What I could do is believe God for more. Because you know what? Why shouldn't I?
We saw God as a provider.
Exactly. And it's like, this is our Father. We stepped out of freedom knowing that He will provide for us because He loves us, because we're His children, right? We wanted the sponsorship to go to Africa to serve Him there, and He provided. What else can He do? Let's find out. So I went and I decided to leave my job. I didn't have anything following up. No, I just left. And I don't recommend anyone to do this. Like, my situation was very particular.
After Alex left his job, we decided maybe this isn't the year to buy a house. And about a couple weeks before we leave to Africa, we get notice that if we wanted to renew our apartment, we were gonna have to pay an additional $500 a month. So they were just raising our rent ridiculously high, which they had done the previous year. And we decided, well, we're gonna step out in faith and we're gonna knock on doors and we're gonna see if maybe we can buy. Maybe not something as big as we originally planned, or maybe the house that we envisioned, but we're gonna try. And at this point, Alex hasn't started his new job yet. We're about to leave for Africa. The day we left to Africa is when we gave our notice to our apartment that we weren't going to renew.
And actually, I didn't even have an offer yet.
Yeah,
A
so
firm offer.
we go to Africa. Alex doesn't have a job.
I'm unemployed. We don't know where we're going to live.
We don't know where we're going to live when we come back. And we go to Africa, and we have this incredible experience. Like, we got to meet so many kids, so many families, so many villages. There was a lot of people that we got to pray for. We built water wells, and it was honestly
These drills were massive, by the way.
The best 10 days of our life. And we come back completely just overwhelmed by everything we saw there. The ability to be content with so little. The joy, the warmth of people, and honestly, very actively getting to see what it's like to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And so coming home, you have this culture shock of reintegrating yourself to just American consumerism, materialism. And it was something that we had already been struggling to walk away from, that we have a higher calling, that we have a higher purpose, and to not be concerned with the worries of this world. But we come home and we have to find a place to live.
And I still need a job.
And by the end of that month in June, Alex did have a job. He started working again. And we had about maybe like 40 days left on our lease. We still didn't know where we were gonna live. We didn't even have an offer or a contract going. And the week that we were gonna give up hope, and I was like, we're gonna have to find somewhere else to rent. I don't know where, but I was in tears. I remember crying with Alex and telling him, I don't think it's a lot to ask of God to let me know where I'm gonna live in a month.
There was any home that you'd turn to, there was multiple cash offers. Multiple cash offers. Like, it doesn't get any more bleak than that.
Like how do you compete with that? And it's like,
it was insane.
God was just showing us like you don't have to.
Yeah. The same night that I remember, like, Silvana was like in tears, and we were just praying for the best. Like, Lord, help us. If not, that Saturday we were just gonna look at rentals. A home became available. A realtor was like, hey, look, I found this one property. For some reason, the previous buyer, it just didn't pan out. But this person really needs to sell the home. And we needed to buy quickly. And we really needed to buy quickly.
And it really felt like this was the home God picked for us.
Yeah.
Like, it came back on the market right on the time that we needed it. Within 24 hours, our offer was accepted. And we were able to close on our home in 3 weeks. And we moved in a week before our lease expired. And we had so many of our friends and family and friends from Generation Church that helped us move. That's the day we closed on the house, just 2 days before my birthday. And God has been so good, and He's been so kind, and He's blessed us and has shown us that He can do abundantly, exceedingly more than we can ask, think, or imagine. And I think what we learned this year was that you have to ask, but you also have to take a step of faith.
I think that, if I could sum it all up, I still miss my brother. We both do. It's my little brother. It's a photo right here of us. I'll always keep him with me. And it was one of the most painful chapters of our lives. But seeing that my brother's no longer suffering, knowing that he's on the other side of eternity waiting for me, knowing that despite the state of pain that we were in,
God restores.
God still restores, and even more so, He does miracles. I hope that's the message that people take from this, is that despite what you're living, God still loves you. He still wants relationship with you. It's okay to be in pain. It's okay to hurt. it's not okay to stay there. And we knew that we couldn't stay there. We knew that because we were sons and daughters of God, we were called for more. And we believed him, and all he needed was our yes. And he took care of the rest. And
That's it.
That's our story. That's it.